Have you thought in terms of probabilities about risk? Is that how you think about risk, is in terms of like probabilities and timelines, or?
Of course, but I have to say something important here. This is a case where previous generations of scientists have talked about a notion called the precautionary principle. So what it means is that if you're doing something, say a scientific experiment, and it could turn out really, really bad, like people could die, some catastrophe could happen, then you should not do it. For the same reason, there are experiments that scientists are not doing right now. We're not playing with the atmosphere to try to fix climate change because we might create more harm than actually fixing the problem. We are not creating new forms of life that could, destroy us all, even though it's something that is now conceived by biologists, because the risks are so huge. But in AI, it isn't what's currently happening. We're taking crazy risks. But the important point here is that even if it was only a 1% probability, let's say, just to give a number, even that would be unbearable, would be unacceptable. Like a 1% probability that our world disappears, that humanity disappears, or that a worldwide dictator takes over thanks to AI. These sorts of scenarios are so catastrophic that even if it was 0.1%, it would still be unbearable. And in many polls, for example, of machine learning researchers, the people who are building these things, the numbers are much higher. Like we're talking more like 10% or something of that order, which means we should be just like paying a whole lot more attention to this than we currently are as a society.
There's been lots of predictions over the centuries about how certain technologies or new inventions would cause some kind of existential threat to all of us. So a lot of people would rebuttal the risks here and say this is just another example of change happening and people being uncertain, so they predict the worst and then everybody's fine. Why is that not a valid argument in this case, in your view? Why is that underestimating the potential of AI?
There are two aspects to this. Experts disagree, and they range in their estimates of how likely it's going to be from like tiny to 99%. So that's a very large bracket. So let's say I'm not a scientist and I hear the experts disagree among each other, and some of them say it's like very likely, and some say, well, maybe, it's plausible, 10%, and others say, oh no, it's impossible, or it's so small. Well, what does that mean? It means that we don't have enough information to know what's going to happen, but it is plausible that one of the more pessimistic people in the lot are right, because there is no argument that either side has found to deny the possibility. I don't know of any other existential threat that we could do something about that has these characteristics.
Do you not think at this point we're kind of just, the train has left the station? Because when I think about the incentives at play here, when I think about the geopolitical, the domestic incentives, the corporate incentives, the competition at every level, countries racing each other, corporations racing each other, it feels like we're now just going to be a victim of circumstance to some degree.
I think it would be a mistake to let go of our agency while we still have some. I think that there are ways that we can improve our chances. Despair is not going to solve the problem. There are things that can be done. We can work on technical solutions. That's what I'm spending a large fraction of my time. And we can work on policy and public awareness and societal solutions. And that's the other part of what I'm doing, right? Let's say, that something catastrophic would happen and you think, there's nothing to be done. But actually, there's maybe nothing that we know right now that gives us a guarantee that we can solve the problem. But maybe we can go from 20% chance of catastrophic outcome to 10%. Well, that would be worth it. Anything any one of us can do to move the needle towards greater chances of a good future for our children, we should do.
How should the average person who doesn't work in the industry or isn't in academia in AI think about the advent and invention of this technology? Are there kind of an analogy or metaphor that is equivocal to the profundity of this technology?
So one analogy that people use is we might be creating a new form of life that could be smarter than us, and we're not sure if we'll be able to make sure it doesn't, harm us, that we'll control it. So it would be like creating a new species that could decide to do good things or bad things with us. So that's one analogy, but obviously it's not biological life.
Does that matter?
In my scientific view, no. I don't care about the definition one chooses for, some system. Is it alive or is it not? What matters is it going to harm people in ways, is it going to harm my children? I'm coming to the idea that we should consider alive any entity which is able to preserve itself and working towards preserving itself in spite of the obstacles on the road. We are starting to see this. We're starting to see AI systems that don't want to be shut down, that are resisting being shut down. And right now, of course, we can shut them down. But if they continue to go in the direction of more and more intelligence and capability, and they continue to have this drive to live, we could be in trouble.
When you say AI systems that don't want to be shut down and are resisting attempts to shut them down, can you give me some examples of this?
Yes. I assume people have been experimenting with chatbots, right? You can now have these agentic chatbots, which can read from files in your computer, can execute commands in the computer, and so on. So with these systems, you can plant information in the files that they have access to, false information, such as emails that say that the AI is going to be replaced by a new version. So now the AI knows that we're planning to shut it down. And it turns out we can read its thought. It has these internal verbalizations that we call chains of thoughts. And then we see that it's planning to do something about it. And then it does something about it. Depending on the circumstances, it might try to copy its code in a different computer or in place of the new version. Or it might try to blackmail the engineer in charge of the change in version. So these systems understand that we want to shut them down, and they try to resist.
When someone hears that, and with knowledge of how previous technology was built, I immediately think, well, who put that in the code?
Unfortunately, we don't put these things in the code. That's part of the problem. The problem is we grow these systems by giving them data and making them learn from it. Now, a lot of that training process boils down to imitating people, because they take all the text that people have written, all the tweets and all the Reddit's comments and so on, and they internalize the kind of drives that humans have, including the drive to preserve oneself and the drive to have more control over their environment so that they can achieve whatever goal we give them. It's not like normal code. It's more like you're raising a baby tiger, and you feed it, you let it experience things. Sometimes, it does things you don't want. It's okay, it's still a baby, but it's growing.
So when I think about something like ChatGPT, is there like a core intelligence at the heart of it, like the core of the model that is a black box? And then on the outsides, we've kind of taught it what we want it to do. How does it?
It's mostly a black box. Everything in the neural net is essentially a black box. Now, the part, as you say, that is on the outside is that we also give it verbal instructions. We type, these are good things to do, these are things you shouldn't do. Don't help anybody build a bomb, okay? Unfortunately, with the current state of the technology right now, it doesn't quite work. People find a way to bypass those barriers. So those instructions are not very effective.
But if I typed, help me make a bomb on ChatGPT now, it's not going to...
Yes. And there are two reasons why it's going to not do it. One is because it was given explicit instructions to not do it, and usually it works. And the other is, in addition, there's an extra layer, because that layer doesn't work sufficiently well. There's also that extra layer we were talking about. So those monitors, they're filtering the queries and the answers. And if they detect that the AI is about to give information about how to build a bomb, they're supposed to stop it. But again, even that layer is imperfect. Recently, there was a series of cyber attacks by what looks like an organization that was state-sponsored that has used Anthropic's AI system, in other words, through the cloud, right? It's not a private system. They're using the system that is public. And they used it to prepare and launch pretty serious cyber attacks. So even though Anthropic's system is supposed to prevent that, so it's trying to detect that somebody is trying to use their system for doing something illegal, those protections don't work well enough.
Presumably they're just going to get safer and safer, though, these systems, because they're getting more and more feedback from humans. They're being trained more and more to be safe and to not do things that are unproductive to humanity.
I hope so. But can we count on that? So actually, the data shows that it's been in the other direction. So since those models have become better at reasoning, more or less about a year ago, they show more misaligned behavior, like bad behavior that goes against our instructions. And we don't know for sure why, but one possibility is simply that now they can reason more. That means they can strategize more. That means if they have a goal that could be something we don't want, they're now more able to achieve it than they were previously. They're also able to think of unexpected ways of doing bad things, like the case of blackmailing the engineer. There was no suggestion to blackmail the engineer, but they found an email giving a clue that the engineer had an affair. And from just that information, the AI thought, aha, I'm going to write an email, and it did, to try to warn the engineer that the information would go public if the AI was shut down.
It did that itself?
Yes. So they're better at strategizing towards bad goals. And so now we see more of that. Now, I do hope that more researchers and more companies will invest in improving the safety of these systems. But I'm not reassured by the path on which we are right now.
The people that are building these systems, they have children too.
Yeah.
Often. I mean, thinking about many of them in my head, I think pretty much all of them have children themselves. They're family people. If they are aware that there's even a 1% chance of this risk, which does appear to be the case when you look at their writings, especially before the last couple of years, there seems to have been a bit of a narrative change in more recent times. Why are they doing this anyway?
That's a good question. I can only relate to my own experience. Why did I not raise the alarm before ChatGPT came out? I had read and heard a lot of these catastrophic arguments. I think it's just human nature. We're not as rational as we'd like to think. We are very much influenced by our social environment, the people around us, our ego. We want to feel good about our work. We want others to look upon us, as doing something positive for the world. So there are these barriers. And by the way, we see those things happening in many other domains. And, in politics, why is it that conspiracy theories work? I think it's all connected. Our psychology is weak, and we can easily fool ourselves. Scientists do that too. They're not that much different.
Just this week, the Financial Times reported that Sam Altman, who is the founder of ChatGPT, OpenAI, has declared a code red over the need to improve ChatGPT even more because Google and Anthropic are increasingly developing their technologies at a fast rate. Code red. It's funny because the last time I heard the phrase code red in the world of tech was when ChatGPT first released their model, and Sergey and Larry, I heard, had announced code red at Google and had run back in to make sure that ChatGPT don't destroy their business. And this, I think, speaks to the nature of this race that we're in.
Exactly. And it is not a healthy race for all the reasons we've been discussing. So what would be a more healthy scenario is one in which we try to abstract away these commercial pressures. They're in survival mode, right? And think about both the scientific and the societal problems. The question I've been focusing on is, let's go back to the drawing board. Can we train those AI systems so that by construction, they will not have bad intentions? Right now, the way that this problem is being looked at is, we're not going to change how they're trained because it's so expensive and, we spend so much engineering on it. We're just going to patch some partial solutions that are going to work on a case-by-case basis. But that's going to fail. And we can see it failing because some new attacks come or some new problems come and it was not anticipated. So I think things would be a lot better if the whole research program was done in a context that's more like what we do in academia, or if we were doing it with a public mission in mind, because AI could be extremely useful. There's no question about it. I've been involved in the last decade in thinking about working on how we can apply AI for medical advances, drug discovery, the discovery of new materials for helping with the climate issues. There are a lot of good things we could do, education, but this may not be what is the most short-term profitable direction. For example, right now, where are they all racing? They're racing towards replacing jobs that people do because there's like quadrillions of dollars to be made by doing that. Is that what people want? Is that going to make people have a better life? We don't know really, but what we know is that it's very profitable. So we should be stepping back and thinking about all the risks and then trying to steer the developments in a good direction. Unfortunately, the forces of market and the forces of competition between countries don't do that.
And I mean, there has been attempts to pause. I remember the letter that you signed amongst many other AI researchers and industry professionals asking for a pause. Was that 2023?
Yes.
You signed that letter in 2023. Nobody paused.
Yeah, and we had another letter just a couple of months ago saying that we should not build superintelligence unless two conditions are met. There's a scientific consensus that it's going to be safe, and there's a social acceptance because, safety is one thing, but if it destroys the way, our cultures or our society work, then that's not good either. But these voices are not powerful enough to counter the forces of competition between corporations and countries. I do think that something can change the game. And that is public opinion. That is why I'm spending time with you today. That is why I'm spending time explaining to everyone what is the situation, what are the plausible scenarios from a scientific perspective. That is why I've been involved in chairing the International AI Safety Report, where 30 countries and about 100 experts have worked to synthesize the state of the science regarding the risks of AI, especially the frontier AI, so that policymakers would know the facts outside of the commercial pressures and the discussions that are not always very serene that can happen around AI.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.